now.
True, but I just thought that
You can keep asking, but that's my answer.
are there lawmakers who are asking for advice on constitutional?
There have been people for several years now asking for advice, and we have been providing them with advice.
Okay, and
What sort of advice have you been providing?
I am the lawyer, so that's a privileged conversation.
Oh, okay.
It's a true story.
What about concealed weapons? Anything new on that? Or have you?
Well, now the new thing that happened today, as you're probably all aware of, is that the U.S. Supreme Court did not take the case out of New York, which was brought by gun rights individuals who are interested in a more expansive law in New York. So New York currently has what is referred to as a may issue statute. And in New York, you have to show that you have a special need in order to receive a permit to carry a concealed weapon. And so really what that means in terms of what's going on here in Illinois with the legislature is that the legislature now can look up and say a may issue statute is something that at this point is constitutional. And so it should have an impact, obviously, on the discussion and debates that are going on under the dome.
Does that have? That means that they upheld it, or didn't see a need to
They didn't see a need to
challenge.
overturn it.
Yeah,
correct.
right,
So they're
right.
not going to take that up at this point.
And that has to.
It will have. I mean, it will obviously influence, our continuing review of the situation here in Illinois. But everybody who's a member of the legislature, as well as the governor, should recognize that they're still under the 180-day deadline imposed by the court, and they need to continue to work on this. If they can come to a compromise and some sort of bill, they should, because otherwise you have a situation where we really don't know what's going to happen.
Does your decision to appeal or not matter with what the legislature does? Is it depending on what the legislature does? I mean, if the legislature can't pass something, is that influencing?
Well, what we're concerned about right now is that the legislature is under a 180-day deadline, which I think runs June 9, June 10, in order to put in place something that is deemed constitutional. And so what we have now are at least some parameters of what that might be. So we know it can be a may issue. We're obviously hopeful that the legislature listens to the court, and we want to make sure that they continue being diligent in the work that they're doing.
General, this past week, I think the New York Times did a piece about Pat Quinn being the second least popular governor in the country. What's your overall assessment right now of his job performance?
I think that I'm going to continue focusing on my job performance and making sure that I am the best Attorney General in the country.
But in terms of the job he's done, though, I mean, it's an important job, obviously. I mean,
It is an important job. I'm not here to comment on that.
Why do you think consistently those polls show him the way he is? Do voters have a problem with him?
You should ask the voters that.
Are you any closer to making your decision?
I am enjoying my job as the Attorney General right now, and when I am ready to make a decision, I will let all of you be among the first people to know.
I think you've raised a few million so far, if I'm correct, and is that all for Attorney General's race, or could that be the basis of the governor's campaign?
Right now, all of that is in my campaign account, and it's going to give me the opportunity to make a decision about what I want to do with my future that best serves the public here in Illinois.
You know, I remember your father saying that it's really bad for the party because of the Dan Walker situation. To have an incumbent
Bernie,
governor
you're really
taken
old.
On, to have that's true. To have an incumbent governor taken on by a member of their own party, because last time this happened, the Republicans got 26 years of the governorship. Does this factor into your decision at all, taking on an incumbent governor?
There are numerous things that will factor into my decision about how I best think I can serve the people of the state of Illinois. And with that, the Attorney General went back to work.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on how this New York decision might impact Illinois, and what do you think this could free?
You want something that's more of a soundbite with that?
No,
I mean,
no.
here's what it means, and I can try to go through this a little more coherently for non-lawyers. Essentially, the U.S. Supreme Court takes very few cases, but obviously Second Amendment cases, they have over the past several years taken a lot of them. And most significantly to people in Chicago and Washington, D.C., have been the Heller and McDonald cases that essentially said that you cannot have a ban on an individual owning a gun and having that in their home, right? So in part because of those decisions, but in part because of the current state of the law here in Illinois, there were challenges to our law in Illinois that essentially said you cannot have a handgun, you cannot conceal carry. And so those decisions ultimately went to the Seventh Circuit that said, you're right, you can't have a regime where there's no, well, very few, I should say, very few people are allowed to have a handgun. The Seventh Circuit then, we asked the entire Seventh Circuit to look at that. They ultimately didn't want to look at it again, and so imposed that 180-day deadline. In the meantime, out of New York, they have what many would consider a restrictive concealed carry law, a may issue law.